So good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the session. And the session is on troubleshooting ADFS, including the web application proxy. Just to give you a little bit of background, I work out of the UK. I've specialized in identity and access for a number of years now. I did an awful lot of work, or I still do actually, with Active Directory. And I'm now beginning to work very aggressively with the Windows Azure Active Directory, seeing how that fits in as an adjunct to the on-premises Active Directory. And we've really doing a whole lot of what I call identity mashups. So Azure Active Directory, third-party enterprise providers, third-party social identity providers, the likes of Facebook, Google, Yahoo, etc., and bringing the whole lot together. And of course, who chucked into the equation something that makes it all a little bit more difficult? It's the CEO who brings in his iPad and says, I want to connect this to the corporate network. And in horror, you think, no, he doesn't. And the answer is, he's the CEO. So you end up now connecting the devices in as well and managing that. So the idea of this agenda here is to look at how we can troubleshoot ADFS. Now, the thing is, I can't show you absolutely everything that can go wrong with ADFS. What I want to try and do in the next hour and 15 minutes is get over a troubleshooting philosophy and show you some tools that can really help us do that troubleshooting. But I want to start off with just setting the scene as to what ADFS does. Okay, so how many of you got ADFS deployed today? Okay, so that's over half the audience. That's good. How many of you are totally new to ADFS? Okay, so this is, you'd like a deep dive, immersion, chuck you in at the deep end. I'm not going to go into all the details of how ADFS works, but I'm going to show you how we troubleshoot it, so we'll be looking at the protocol flows and all the rest. And then we'll be looking at how the web application proxy fits in. Warning, things you see, don't just take them away and put them straight into production. I've been to a number of companies and they've got a problem, and you start digging into the problem and you say, why did you do that? And they say, oh, we read some Microsoft document that said do it. And I said, did you test it? Did you take ownership of it? No, we just did it. Don't. All right? Everything you need to do, you need to evaluate, you need to test. And I'm going to, or most of my presentations are based on field experience. My main role is as a consultant / architect, but I say / architect because I still like getting my hands dirty. I still like to do the troubleshooting and really dig into things. And as we know, no two fields are the same. So something I show you may not work in your environment, but I hope what I will show you is enough for you to take the ideas and concepts and apply them to your environment. And the other thing is demos. Please, please, please do not say, hey, look, we've just seen the ideal ADFS deployment. All right? My demos are showing points. All right? It is not an ideal production environment. Number one, I've got to get it all on my little machine. Which is obviously we wouldn't do in production. Okay, so first of all, Server 2012 R2 ADFS. What does it bring to the game? First off, a little bit about naming. If you look on the internet, all right, you will see ADFS version 3. All right? This is not ADFS version 3. This is just ADFS. It doesn't have a version number to go with it. So, because I actually went to the product group and said, hey, what do you actually call this thing? Because various people are calling it ADFS 3, and they said, oh, it's just ADFS. All right, so if someone's deployed ADFS, they've deployed Windows Server 2012 R2 ADFS. Otherwise, they've deployed something like ADFS 2, or back in the days of ADFS 1. IIS has gone, so there is no need for IIS anymore. Everything is done using http.sys. So that brings a little bit of challenge in terms of rebinding certificates and everything else. You need to use PowerShell for doing that. So we rebind certificates using PowerShell. The install directory is under Windows ADFS, so if you need to look for the config files for turning on tracing and things like that, then you go into that particular directory. There's support now for additional claim types, including device claims. So this is where we have a workplace join device, all right? And we have certain claims about the device. So the operating system it's running, is it managed, is it registered, and so on. So we can actually make authentication and authorization decisions based on the device. So you could say, oh, if it's running iOS, I won't let it connect. But probably that's not a great idea, right? But you can make that sort of level of decision. The other thing is we've got support now for global and per relying party authentication policies. And those will allow you to have an authentication policy. And in terms of authentication, we're talking about the actual authentication. Do you want to use multi-factor? What type of authentication would you like to use? Do you want to use Windows authentication? Do you want to use forms? Do you want to use certificate authentication? And we can make those decisions based on location of the device, i.e., is it inside of our corporate network, on our intranet, or is it outside on the internet? Microsoft call it the extranet if you're looking in the UI. Okay? And then the device type. Well, I've just talked about how we can find out about the device type, and then group membership. So you could say that anyone who's in some sort of administrative group of some kind would need to use multi-factor. So you could do that. Or you could say all devices, if they're coming in from the internet, will use multi-factor. Or you can do it on a per application basis or per relying party basis. So you could say, oh yeah, most of our apps, people can come in with just username and password, but for these apps, it's got to be multi-factor. And now we've got support for OAuth 2. OAuth 2 is becoming extremely significant. OAuth 2 is the sort of federated protocol that we will use to access most of today's RESTful APIs. So REST APIs probably secured with OAuth 2. It's an authorization protocol. So there's support added for that. When we do a workplace join, we will actually use OAuth 2. If you're publishing out work folders through ADFS, it will use OAuth 2. So OAuth 2 is important to us. And then you've got customization, so multi-factor authentication providers. The default setting is it'll allow you to use certificates as your second factor. But you can use the phone factor, you can add that, you can add other third-party mechanisms as well. Includes a device registration service. What is the device registration service? It's for joining a device, all right? So it manages the workplace join. And then in terms of the proxy is actually now, for ADFS, comes under the umbrella of the web application proxy. So we can't use a previous ADFS proxy. It has to be now from the web application proxy. So we've got the proxy for ADFS, we've got application publishing, and we've also got the ability to pre-authenticate. So I can take an application, I can just publish it out through the proxy, you connect, you go through the proxy to the application, and the application manages the authentication. Right? But I can require pre-authentication, so you come to the edge and it says, hey, before you get through me, I'm going to authenticate you. And before you get through the proxy, you've got to authenticate using claims. Right? So to do that, you need ADFS to implement that. And then finally, if you do have the proxy, then you can actually use it. So you could come to the edge with pre-authentication with a claims identity, and then we can take that claims identity and actually map it to a Windows identity to go to a Windows auth app. Because normally you come in claims, you go through to a claims app, but here we can actually go through to a Windows auth app, and that uses Kerberos-constrained delegation. PowerShell support even better than ever. all right, and PowerShell absolute essential to actually for configuring this. Now, I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly because the reason is I want to leave lots of time for the demos, and really this I'm going to dig into more detail. This is just to set the scene so that you can actually see what's going on in the demos. So key concepts. We have a user and it requests a token. Requests a token for application X, all right? Well, if you were doing Kerberos, that's exactly what you do. You'd say, oh, can I have a Kerberos token to application X? But the difference here is, once we've been authenticated, it issues a security token that is crafted for application X with the claims on it that application X needs. Whereas a Kerberos token, it's, hey, you want to go to application X? Here you are, all your group membership. You want to go to application Y? Here you are, all your group membership. Right? But here, we can actually specifically craft the token. And then that token is accepted by the application. Why is it accepted as proof of authentication of the user? Because the token is digitally signed. All right? So what this guy down here, the relying party, is going to do is actually validate that signature. And then what we've got is the security token itself, which can contain pretty much anything you like in terms of claims. And you may have name, group membership, etc. Or you may decide, actually, I don't even need to know the name of the person. All I need to know is they're from the sales department. All right? And you could do it at that level. It's entirely up to you in terms of the design, what you put on that token. Now, if we're working with a partner organization, what will happen is we will hit our Claims app. It will say you're not authenticated and give a redirect, and it redirects you to a security token service that it trusts. All right? Because what does it mean by trusting it? Well, basically, it will trust the signature on the token. And then what will happen is we have to do a thing called home realm discovery, because this security token service may trust a number of other security token services. So the home realm discovery basically says, hey, where's your home realm to authenticate you? And there are various ways that that can be automated, but somehow we need to discover the home realm of the user. It then redirects you to the appropriate ADFS server. It may be an ADFS server. It might be just a straightforward security token service running on a completely different platform. Industry standard, all this works, mix and match. Authenticate happens, you get a token back. That token cannot be used by the application because the application doesn't trust it. It's been issued by the partner's security token service. The only person that trusts that is our security token service. So the token goes back to our security token service. It now validates that token. It opens it up, takes all the claims off it, processes the claims that application X wants, creates a new token, and returns it with the arrow round the wrong way. Apologies about the arrow. It's obviously, it should be pointing back as returned. And then, oh no, sorry. Where have we done? What have we done? We hit that. Yeah, it should have been returned, and the arrows have got mixed. We then send the token back to the claimsware application, and what happens at that point? We return the cookies and the page. Okay, my demo environment is like that. I have a virtual internet. I have a partner network. I have example.com, which I'm going to call our network. An ADFS server, domain controller, an application server, and the proxies. My first two demos, I'm going to do, they're slightly strange in the fact that I'm going to do them without going through the proxy, but they involve the partner. And the reason is I don't want to complicate the traces I'm doing with the proxy to begin with. Okay, so just bear in mind that normally if we're working with a partner organization, we would be going through proxy. But it doesn't detract from what I want to show you. It's just I want to simplify it so it's easier to understand, and then we will go on to the proxy. Okay, so I want to look at the federated user experience, and I'm going to switch over here, and we'll go over to my client. So I'm going to log on to my client. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go across to my Claims app. So over to my Claims app. So this is by way of seeing the environment, getting to know it. So I've got example.com is our organization, and XT Seminars is a partner. So let's go to example.com. I'm being prompted here, and I'm going to go in as my example user, John. Now, what I could do is I could automatically pass those credentials through, because this is a Windows prompt, so it could automatically pass through from the browser. I've deliberately turned that off, and the reason being that I want you to see when the authentication takes place. So here we are, a whole bunch of claims coming back, and so I've got roles, I've got SID, group SIDs, I've got the name, the Windows account name, and I've also got here an email address for John. So that's passed through. So that's going to the client here. What I'm going to do is close that off, and I'm going to go back, and this time I'm going to go to my partner organization. So we're going to log on as a user from the partner organization. But notice I've gone straight back to adfs.example.com. So why was I not prompted with the home realm? Yeah, so it becomes, well done, it becomes, when you make the decision, it becomes a persistent cookie, all right, that's presented back. So I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to delete my cookies, and I'm going to go back in again. So this time, I'm going to choose xtseminars.com, and I'm going to go in, and this time I'm going to go in as a partner, and that's Tina. And she's from the partner organization. And, okay. Don't you just hate it when demos go wrong? But then, of course, you've got to remember the title of the session. It's Troubleshooting ADFS. So let's look at the error details. Now, you may have been familiar from previous versions of ADFS of this thing called the activity ID, and it was a long GUID string, you know, all filled out with hexadecimal characters. Well, now it's actually a little bit simpler to recognize. But I'm going to grab that, because what we need to do with that is we need to go across to the appropriate federation server. And I say appropriate, so it's fairly obvious, it's example federation, but if you look up here, it's adfs.example.com. So that is the federation server that is actually throwing the error. It is not my partner's federation server. It is this federation server. So if you're involving with partners, do actually think, where's this error actually coming from? Is it from the partner, or is it from our organization? So it's from our organization. So I'm going to go across to my ADFS server. And I'm going to fire up here Event Viewer. Oops. So I'm going to go to Event Viewer. And what we need to do is come down under the, not the Windows logs, all right, but under Application and Services logs. And what I'm looking for is ADFS. I'm looking for admin here. Now, pretty obvious, that's probably the error. And if we look at the time on it, yes, it is. That's time back in the UK. But what we can do is we can actually do a find, okay? And we drop in that correlation ID, and what it's doing, it's finding, and it's the first three which are related to that correlation ID. If we look at the warning, there's not a lot. It doesn't tell us very much at all. All right, but if we look at the error message, the error reporting has got a lot better in this version of ADFS. And if we scroll down here, it's saying there's an exception, and it's about a token issued by sts.partner.xtseminars.com, and that's what it's saying, is signed with a signature algorithm of SHA-1, okay? And our expected signature algorithm is SHA-256. Now, I've come across this when working with third-party identity providers. All right? Things don't work. The error reporting wasn't particularly helpful in the past, but what I'm saying is, yes, it's industry standard, but you've got to be choosing the same standards at both sides. All right? So what we do is we call up the partner organization and we say, look, hey, this should be using SHA-256. And they go, yeah, but, you know, it's not easy for us to change because we're running some other platform and, you know, we haven't implemented SHA-256 yet. So you then have to go to your security and compliance officer and say, is it okay if we accept tokens with a SHA-1 signature on? And if they say yes, you can go ahead. If they say no, well, then you're going to have to do a bit bigger battle with your partner organization. But let's assume here the partner organization can actually change this for us. And I'm going to come up here to ADFS on the partner organization. What we're looking for is a claims provider trust, sorry, a relying party trust, down to adfs.example.com. And if we look at the properties of that and go to advanced, we've got the SHA-256. Okay, it was the first couple of demos that I'm using from scenarios that we've encountered and we've had big arguments over. As I say, it's great relief that the error reporting now is a whole lot better. But, you know, do be prepared that you could have just slight changes in the algorithm. Obviously, we need the correct signing certificate. We need to know what they're signing it with, but equally well, we need to know that we're using the correct algorithms. Okay, so that's by way of introducing us how we, oh no, sorry, I just want to actually show you one thing. The correlation ID, if we just go back over here, it's not obvious where that is. So if we go to details, and you need to go to XML view, and we can see that our activity ID is down there. So 7E ends BB. If we go back over to this guy, we got 7E ends BB. Oh, we should have proved it actually worked now, shouldn't we? So let's close that off. Let's go to claims again, and we're going to our partner, and we're going to partner Tina, and yeah, just remember the password is, and we're in, okay? And over here, we can see that we're getting Tina, the UPN, at partner.xtseminars.com. Okay, so let's go back to the slide deck. And as I said, I'm going to move fairly rapidly through the slide deck. So how to troubleshoot it, correlation ID, and it's shown as the activity ID. Do the find. All right, and what it will do is it will find you the first event, the second event, next event, every time you click find. If you want to just pull all those with that correlation ID in them, then what you need to do is create an XPath form query and pop it in to the filter. So you filter for the event log, and all you need to do is that's the string that you use, you just pop in the activity ID into there. And what it will do is you'll just see all of the events with that particular activity ID associated with them. In terms of setting the logging details, you've got error, warning, information, and verbose. Through the UI, you cannot set verbose. All right? By default, it's on. All you can do is change error, warning, and information. By default, success audits and failure audits are not on. So if you want to turn those on, you can do that. And to do it, to enable auditing, you've got to run also the audit poll. So we've actually got a setup that we're doing failure enable and success enable on the application-generated subcategory. So you've got to set that up as well. In terms of if you want to get into real hardcore debugging, you can turn on debugging tracing. And it's something we used to do with ADFS version 2 quite often because the ordinary logs weren't particularly brilliant. The tracing logs weren't necessarily brilliant, but they might give you a bit more of a clue as to what's going on, particularly if you start customizing, right, your version of ADFS, so you've got your own customized code. And to turn this on, you need to enable the log. So you show analytic and debug logs, enable the log. If you want verbose logging, you can do that. And you can turn that on. You've got to restart the service. Great as a debugging aid, but whatever you do, turn it off after you've used it, because you will produce the most copious amounts of logged info. If you want to get into the Windows Communication Foundation and the WIF tracing, or the Windows Identity Foundation tracing, you can do that. And what you're looking for is a couple of files. You remember the install directory is Windows ADFS. You're looking in there, and you're looking for one which controls ADFS settings, which is the services host.exe.config, and the other one, which is the device registration service, which, if you remember, the device registration is about workplace joined devices. So if you need to do some additional debug, you can turn that on. Once again, if you turn this tracing on, make sure you turn it off. And if you've got a performance issue, or you think that you're getting a huge number of authentication requests you don't expect, then the performance counters, there is an enormous number of ADFS-related performance counters. So if you do have an issue, you can actually turn on the counters and analyze what's going on there. So debug logs, tracing, and also the performance counters. But do remember, if you are doing tracing, turn it off afterwards. Now, an absolute essential tool, I believe, is the Fiddler. How many of you use Fiddler? Okay, that's not maybe a third of the audience. Every single hand should have gone up, because it is a really brilliant tool for actually debugging issues with federation. And what it does is it allows you to intercept HTTPS, because it acts as a man in the middle, okay? So it's sitting on your test machine, acts as a man in the middle, intercepts HTTPS, and logs it, right? So what you can do is you can see what's going on, because all of our ADFS protocols are wrapped in HTTPS. So, you know, if you tried to use a standard network trace, all you'd see is, you know, HTTPS tunnel, 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 and you wouldn't know what's going on. But here you can. Word of warning, if you, and we've done this a few times, if you have to capture a trace because somebody is having a problem, all right, and there's a mini version of Fiddler, or you can just teach a person very easily how to install it. It's free download, how to install it, and how to capture a trace. Be warned that if they're coming to the proxy or any forms authentication, they're going to pass their username and password in clear text. All right? So when you're doing your analysis, you will probably invariably fall against and see their password. So having done and sorted out the problem, you need to tell them to do a password reset. So just be careful from a security perspective on that. So how do we see WS federation on the wire? Well, we've been through this, but we went through it previously with a partner. But what I want to do is we hit the claims aware app, we're not authenticated, we redirect to the STS, and we authenticate, we get our security token back, we present it back to the claims aware app, and we render the page and return some cookies. And what I want to do is look at that piece there specifically. The first redirect to the security token service is basically saying, I need to go send you to the security token service. Which one? The one I know about. So this is the application saying this. So it's going to redirect the client up to the security token service that it trusts. So that's the first redirect, and it goes to the ADFS logon endpoint. The next thing is, what action do you want performed? So the action here is WA sign in, right? So that's the action. Now, what do we want? We're going up there to get a security token. Who are we getting the security token for? The application, right? So the application is redirecting the client up to the ADFS server to get a security token for itself. So it identifies itself to the security token service, and that's what the WT realm parameter is. The next thing, the WCTX parameter, remains unchanged. So when you get a reply back with the token, you will get the same WCTX parameter as you passed up. So imagine I'm being hit by 200 requests, and I'm doing 200 redirects, and somehow I want to tie the lot together. All right? So what's going to happen now is when I get the token back, the WCTX value will be the same as I supplied in the redirect. So it allows me to sync the whole thing up, if I want to. And then the final thing is a timestamp. So there's a timestamp on there. So redirect, log into ADFS. ADFS needs to return the token. And it all has to be done through the browser. So what it does is it returns a hidden form with a post method. And inside that hidden form is the token, right? And down the bottom of the hidden form is a submit button and a little bit of JavaScript to automate the post. So sitting in here is the SAML token, right? And by the way, just to be absolutely clear, when I talk about a SAML token, I'm talking about the format of the token, which is an XML format, right? In terms of WS Federation, in terms of a federated protocol, there's WS Federation and there's SAML-P, all right? So here, this could be dealing with SAML-P or WS Fed, but the token is in SAML format. I've just put it there. It begins and ends with SAML : assertion. We've got the WCTX parameter that's passed back, and then we've got this little bit of automated, the JavaScript to automate the submission. If you want to, having got Fiddler, you can download an inspector. Fiddler is very customizable, but you can download an inspector, and what that inspector will do is allow you to see the SAML tokens in XML format, and it's extremely useful if you're debugging. And there's the Codeplex link to get there. Now, cookies. So what's happened is we've gone up to the ADFS server and we've been authenticated by the ADF server, and when we get authenticated by the ADFS server, it gives us a whole raft of cookies. The first one up there, it will give back, on successful authentication, it will get back an MSIS selection persistent, which is the home realm discovery. All right? And that's a persistent cookie. And that's why, when we went back the first time, we didn't see the home realm discovery. It had disappeared. The MSIS authenticated is basically saying you are authenticated to the ADFS server. Use this cookie to come back to me to allow me to generate a new token without asking you to authenticate again. The MSIS authenticated is the time when the authentication took place. We then got an MSIS sign out, and that keeps track of all the relying parties that we've authenticated to. All right? So I come in, all right, and I'm going to application 1. All right? So go through, and that cookie is set to the URL for application 1. All right? I then come back and I say I need a token for application 2. All right? Automatically authenticated to ADFS because we resubmit the ADFS cookie. Application 2, we get a token for, and now the MS signout cookie has the URL for application 1, and it has the URL for application 2. Right? And then the final cookie there is the MSIS loop detection cookie. And this stops the situation where you go to the application, all right? The application says you're not authenticated. Up to the ADFS server. You come back to the application with a token, all right? Let's say that the application didn't trust the token because it wasn't happy with the signing algorithm or it wasn't happy with the signature. All right? What would happen then is the application would say, you're not authenticated. So what does the application do? It sends it to the ADFS server. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And it would just sit there for the rest of its life going up and down like that. And to prevent that happening is what the MSIS loop detection cookie does. And the default timeout on that is actually 6 sort of redirects in a short space of time, and then it stops it. And basically, that's used to stop the bouncing up and down. And then, having got our token, presented it to the application will give us back some cookies, and those cookies will allow us to continuously stay authenticated to the app. Exactly what gets put back, given back, depends on the application. And those cookies tend to be session cookies. They don't have to be. They could be persistent cookies, but they tend to be session cookies. So when you close the browser, then you are now no longer authenticated to the application. Okay, so this is a scenario which I want to go through. And again, it was a scenario we came across when working with a third-party identity provider. And we were expecting, with this identity provider, that they were going to supply an email address. So if you remember down here, what we've got is this set of claims came from our partner. And, oh, sorry, thank you very much. That's the wrong button. That's the one. So this set of claims here came from our partner organization. And if we look down here, there is no email address. So you tell the partner, and I've had lots and lots of these conference calls, you know, you get the partner involved and you say, you're not sending us an email address. And they say, oh, yes, we are. And you say, oh, no, you're not. And you say, we definitely are. So you say, okay, I'll just check things. So you go over to your ADFS server, and what you do is you check. We know, because we know that we've got our emails coming from our own organization. So what we need to do is look at the claims providers trust. So XT Seminars is our partner, and that's the partner settings there. But what I want to do is look at the claim rules, and I've got a claim rule saying pass email. And this is the acceptance. These are the rules I'm going to accept from my partner. And let's just have a look at that, make sure it's correct. Incoming claim type, email address. So yeah, I'm passing it through. So that's working, and we know we're sending it to the relying party because we are getting the email address. Or do we? Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the relying party trust on the claims authentication here. And so, sorry, not I want to look at the claims rules. And what I've got here is email, and if we edit that rule, look what I'm doing. I'm getting the email address directly from the Active Directory. So I'm doing an LDAP query. So obviously, I'm not doing it, so I keep very quiet. I'm not going to tell my partner this. And then I suddenly look, issue all claims. So actually, I have a rule which says anything. So we've accepted email, we put it into the claims pipeline, and then we're issuing all claims that we're getting down to the client. All right? So the email should definitely work. So you call them up, and it's one of those conversations that go, you know, you're not sending us email, and they say, oh, yes, we are, and you say, oh, no, you're not. And then what do you do? Well, one of the things we could do is we could turn on Fiddler, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to turn Fiddler on, and let me just do this. I want to cancel that. I want to kill the cookies for the moment. So I'm going to delete my cookies. So we get rid of the cookies, and I'm just going to clear that out again. By the way, I just use Control-X to clear that out. Okay, so I'm going to go over to claims. I'm going to go to, this time, example federation. I'm going to go in as my user, John. And I'm just trying to think what his password is. Tech Okay, so that's in. And just to verify that, we've got down here, if you remember, let's just show that we do have somewhere down here email address. So the email address is coming through. Okay, let's just close that. Actually, sorry, let's get rid of my cookies again. So I'm going to dump the cookies, and I'm going to go back in again, and this time I'm going to the partner organization, and we're going to Tina. Okay, and we know that we're not getting the email. So let's have a look to see what happened. So the first time we went to the SRV1, right? And if we have a look at the headers returned, what we've got is a 302, which is a redirect, and then I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to send it to the text wizard, and grab that, and to make it nice and easy, I'm going to put that into Notepad so we can all see it. Okay, so ding, do that and that. Okay, so the redirect is up to the ADFS server. The action is sign in. The realm is server 1 claims. So that's, I want a token for this, WCTX value, and then the WCT, which is the timestamp. So that sends us back up to ADFS. So the next thing that happens on ADFS is we're getting a 200 OK. Well, what are we getting back? If I look at that in web view, I can see that actually this is the home realm discovery. All right, so I'm getting the home realm discovery back. So the next one should be a post, which it is. And if we look at that in web form view, we can see the post is that we're going, let's just move that over a fraction. We can see it's adfs.example.com, ADFS services trust. So that's the home realm selection that's happened. The next thing is we've got a redirect, and then we do the authentication, and then, having done the authentication, what happens is, let's just move to, for the moment, to the header view, we get these huge raft of cookies. So we've got the MSIS authenticated, just all the cookies I've listed and gone through. So this shows we're authenticated, and if we look at it in web view, oh look, it's a page with a submit button on. Okay, so what's on the page? So we go to text view, and we view it in Notepad, and what we've got here is we've got a form method, post, all right? What are we going to post back? We're going to post the hidden form, and it's going to go to server1.example.com claims. If we go down the bottom of that, what we can see is we've got the submit button and a little bit of JavaScript to actually do the submission. And then we've got the value in here of the WCTX. And if I just pop that in there, that and that are we've got the WCTX value, and they don't quite look the same, but you can believe me, they are. Or what I can do is I can go to the Fiddler debugger, and if I go to Tools and bring up my text wizard, if I drop that in there and then decode it from HTML and put that back in, okay, so the AMP and a colon is basically the ampersand in here. So that's just it's HTML encoded, so that just decodes it and shows you that it's the same. Okay, so that means that we're looking at the right reply because that's been set. And then if we look down through, if we go back to viewing our notepad here, and if we actually go down, let's go to the top of this file. And if we do a find in here, and we do a find on John, there is John at example.com, And if we look up here, the attribute name is UPN, all right? And if we go again, what we got is John, example/John, and this is the name. And we carry on, we go down here, we've got in here, where are we? Windows account name, that's the Windows account name. Next on there, and john@xtseminars.com, and somewhere the attribute name is email. So everything's in there, and you can look at it with Notepad if you want to, or if you put in the Fiddler inspector, then what we've got is the ability to actually click on the Federation button and see what's inside that SAML token. So there's his UPN, etc. So that's very, very useful. So that we get back. So this is in a 200 OK. So it's the page coming back. Remember, the action is to post it. Where do we post it to? Well, it said in the form, it said posted to server1.example.com claims. So if we look at that, we're posting it back there. And what's going to happen is the application, in fact, it's using Windows Identity Foundation to make all of this work. And what's happening is it's taking the token, it's validating the token, so checking the signature on the token, and then it's issuing a fedauth cookie. And it can do in two ways. It can take the contents of the token and serialize it and give you a number of cookies, or it can cache the token and give you back a pointer to the token in cache. Right? But either way, we now have the fedauth cookies, and then we hit the application again. We get a redirect, sending the fedauth cookies, and we've now got, at this point, we end up with a session cookie. So that's basically how it works. Now let's look at it. We're going to server 1. This time we're up to ADFS. Home realm discovery again, so I'll just go to web view on that. That's the home realm discovery. The next thing that happens is we get a post. What are we posting this time? And if we look at the view here in terms of web forms, we're going to sts.partner.xtseminars.com. That's the home realm that we've selected. The next thing that's going to happen is we're going to get when we go up here, we're going to get a redirect. So if we look at if we go to headers here, look at the redirect, and let's just grab that, send it to the text wizard, copy that, pop it in here. We've got a redirect, and this time, let's just clean this up. The WT Realm Services Trust. Okay, so this time it's basically saying, go to the partner, all right, sign in. The realm we're interested in is us. Basically, it's this STS, and we're sending it up and saying, you must have a relationship with this STS, so we're a relying party there. And then the WCTX that it's using is a GUID. So if we go on from there, what happens next is we get authenticated by the partner, and we get the token back. So there's our raft of cookies at the partner. And if we look in here, in text view, what we see here is we've got this time, it's a post method again, and that's where it's going to get posted back to. So our ADFS server, if we look down the bottom, we see the WCTX value, which is the value we had. And then if we look up here, we can see Tina's name, and here we've got Tina's email address. Right? Is the font too small? Or can't you read crypto? No? Okay. All right. Well, let's look at it with the Federation Inspector, and it's an encrypted cookie. It's an encrypted, so we got the cipher value. The token is encrypted. So the default between two ADFS servers is to actually encrypt the token. All right? And in terms of the if we want to, we can actually ask the partner organization to turn off encryption, and then we can actually capture what's going on. So I'm actually just going to do that. I'm going to clear that up. I'm going to go back over to my partner, and this is obviously for debugging purposes. In here, let's just grab that. And we just pop it into a bit of PowerShell. Okay, so what it is, it's basically the relying party is the target name is adfs.example.com, encrypt claims false. So I've turned off encryption now, so let's just go back on my client. Let's go back to, whoops, we need to close that completely because we've still got cookies. We're going to go back. We're up to STS partner because it's remembered the home realm discovery. And the partner is in here, remember, it's Tina. And okay, so we've actually successfully gone up here. Now let's go back to Fiddler and let's look at that interaction coming back here and view in Notepad. And if we look for Tina, so I'm going to do a edit find, and I'm looking for, we look at Tina at, oops, Tina at, and do a find next on there. There's Tina at, what is that? That's a UPN, and then we do it again, and we got Tina at, and what's this? It's an email alias. Looks a bit suspicious. And the attribute namespace it's in is xdseminars.com, custom. So it's actually a custom claim they're sending us. They're not sending us a standard email claim. So you call them up and say, but you're sending us this email alias, which is not the standard email claim. And they say, oh, yeah, we've always done that. And you say, well, why didn't you tell us? Oh, well, just the way we do things. We didn't think it was unusual. And then you say, okay, well, can you send us the correct email? No, we don't support it. So what would it cost to support it? Oh, that's a design change request. Or probably about $10,000. And you go, forget it. Why don't we implement their custom claim? So we can go over to, let's go to them first of all. And if we look under claims descriptions, we've got a custom claim in here. And the custom claim is email alias. Let's just grab that. Okay, and it says publish this claim description, federation metadata as a claim type that this federation server can send. All right, so they're populating this claim type. Let's go across to our ADFS and let's go up to services in here and claims descriptions, add a claim description, and we'll call this email alias. And pop that in there. And what we want to do is publish this claim description, federation metadata, so that it can accept, okay? So I'm going to publish that, so I'm going to accept it, and then what I need to do is go to my claims provider trust up here, and I'm going to, don't need to change that, but what I do need to do is change the claims rule, and I'm going to add a rule. And what I'm going to do is use a transform. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go alias to email. And what I've got, incoming claim type. Now, this should appear down the bottom, which it does, email alias. The reason it appears there is because I've created it, published it, and then I'm going to send that as an email address, finish that off, all right? It's just giving me a warning about I'm passing everything here through, and it's not, it might be exactly what you want to do, like passing all emails from a partner, or you may want to filter them. That's just giving me that warning. So I'm going to go back now to the client, and actually, let me just go back there. I thought I hadn't an OK on that. Go back to the client, and we can kill that off, and let's go back. Close that. And I'm going to the partner STS here, and I'm going, my partner, again, we use Tina. and we come down here, what we hopefully will find is an email address, okay? So there was a lot of things I wanted to show you in that particular demo. The fact is, don't be frightened of Fiddler. It is an amazingly useful tool, and you can actually resolve a lot of arguments with it. But do be aware, sometimes tokens are encrypted, so we could ask for the encryption to be turned off, but they might well say we can't do that. So we need to find another way. And this is where, and this is so much better in this version of ADFS, this is where we can turn on security auditing. And what we have is we have a relationship with the claims provider, and we have a relationship with a relying party, all right? And by the way, you won't find this slide documented anywhere in any publication. This is one I put together brand new for this session. So if we're coming from the AD, when the person logs in, right, if you're using the AD, they will be prompted to log in. There will be a 4624 event. And then following that is a 412 with a series of 501s, which gives the information about the user and the groups coming out of the AD. All right? That then flows into the acceptance transform rules, so whatever rules you've got in there, and then you get a 299 followed by a series of 500s. All right? That's the result of those transform rules. It shows you the issued claims that will flow into the pipeline. And then in terms of the issuance authorization rules, we make a decision as to whether we're going to issue a token, and if we deny it, we get a 324. Otherwise, when we go through the issuance transform rules, we get a 299 and a series of 500s, which are the claims that actually go in the token. Now, if you're presenting a token into the system, which we are, it's slightly different. We're getting the token, we're opening it up, we're looking inside the contents of the token, and we get a series of 501s, which gives the information about the claims received. All right? And then we've got the acceptance transform rules, and then we don't have the end of the processing of the acceptance transform rules that goes into the pipeline. It just simply has a 299, which shows you the issued claims. So if we just very quickly look at that, the alternative approach that we can use is we can come over to our ADFS server, and we can actually look over here at services, and just over here, events. I've turned on success audit and failure audit, plus I've set the system up, the audit poll setting. So let's, on here, go to the event log. And if I go to the event log and I'm going to the Windows logs, and I'm going to the security log in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to find in here a 412 event, which is the first event when the token's received. Okay, so cancel that, and okay, for some reason it didn't find it. Why not? Let's have another go. Find 412. That should have worked. Why isn't it not working? Sorry? I can't hit, sorry. Have I got a filter on here? Sorry, yell out again, click the right-hand side. That filter log, but I haven't got a filter on the current log. I don't think, and I've got all events in the log currently. Sorry, I don't know why. Sorry, I'm missing something, obviously. I'm not thinking my jet lag setting in. Under the filter, the current log. Yeah, but I'm actually, yeah, but why if I do a find on here, am I not finding it? Let me just do this. Maybe we're looking, let's just do a refresh on here. And let's just go right up the top. And if I do a find on here, and I'm looking for 412 in here, find next, and it's still not doing it. It is a 412, isn't it? Let me just check that I'm not being silly on here. Yeah, okay. Sorry, so I'm still missing something. So you were saying, what should I do here? Down here, the filter. All event IDs, yeah. Oh, do the form, yeah, but I don't, you see, the trouble is I don't want to do that because there are lots of 412 event IDs. But okay, okay, let's take that one, and then filter the current log, and then if we, okay, that, and you see, what I wanted to do was go down to the first 412 event ID, which it should have done, and I don't quite understand why it's not doing that. Let me. Yeah, fine. Okay, let's. Sorry, I've just been stupid. Yeah, I apologize on that. It's finding 412 somewhere else, and I'm just not thinking about it. Okay, so here's the 412 event coming in, and what it's saying, it's actually got an assertion for srv1.example.com claims. So we go up on there, and the 501 that we're getting is basically we've got Tina at partner. XT seminars, that's a UPN. We've got primary group SIDs that are coming in. And then we've got the name in here, Tina again as the account name. And if we look at the next one, what we can see is, if we go up, we've got in here the email alias coming through, tina@partner.xtseminars.com. So we can see that this custom claim type is coming through. If you then look now, because we fixed it, if we look at the 299 event, it's saying I'm issuing to a relying party. So we close that off, and then if we come on here, what we can see is we've got the identity in here of the caller's identity, and then if we go up the sorry, I've just lost that one, 299, that's it. I've just jumped. We've got the 500, which is actually showing us the identity. We've got the IP address. And if we go on to, we've got Tina, email address, tina@partner.xtseminars.com. So we've actually got that capability of using the logs. And I apologize, I just wasn't thinking. I just needed to, we're looking at 412. I was expecting it to appear immediately, and I just forgot that I needed to click down a few times. So apologies for that. Okay, web application proxy. ADFS automatically publish it through it, no edge authentication. We can do a pass-through. We've got no edge authentication. We can do a claims-aware publication, in which case we can use pass-through pre-authentication. So what we're going to do before we get here, we're going to have to authenticate to the ADFS server. And then finally, we can do it with Kerberos constrained delegation. So here, we can pre-authenticate at the edge and then go through to the Windows application. SAML token types, we've got the token types, we've got SAML. For a while, there was the simple web token, but now the de facto standard is either SAML, if you're using an enterprise protocol. If you're using a simpler protocol, you'll use a JSON web token, or known as a JOT. In terms of communications and trust, we've seen the security token is going to be signed. It's signed by the STS, and the STS has a private key, and to validate it, we need the public key. If it's encrypted with the public key of the relying party, and we will need the private key to validate or decrypt it. Okay? By the way, CNG certificates are still not supported in ADFS. So if you have a CNG cert, you will have troubles with it, i.e. it will not work. So what I want to do is actually solve a proxy problem. So I'm going to move my ADFS, my client, out onto the internet. So let's just bring this down here. And I'm going to move this guy here out onto the internet itself. So move from the London network onto my pretend internet. Okay, that. And let's go again. And actually what I want to do is I'm going to my partner. I don't want to do that. So let's just get rid of the cookies. Let's close that. Let's take him back up full screen. Just clear out Fiddler. And we go off to claims. And I want to go as example. So example in here, John. And where and web page can't be found. 400 bad request. Okay, let's see what's going on. So off to SRV1 claims, redirect at this point. Let's have a look at the redirection that's taken place. And if we look on the headers, grab this, send it to the text wizard, copy it, and actually put it into Notepad. And what we'd expect it to be something like this. But actually, it's not. The redirect is we got an action here, which is sign in, and the realm is here. And return URL, let's just do that, and the client request ID, let's clean that up. Okay, so what we've got in here is with the realm is urn at proxy.com. So basically we're hitting the proxy and it's saying, go off and get a token for me. Nothing to do with SRV1, but it is to do with SRV1, because if we're doing edge authentication, we can say that if you're going to SRV1, we would like you to use multi-factor. All right? So SRV1 is identified here. And if I go across to my proxy on here, so there's my proxy. If I bring up this, I can do a get on the, so it's the web app proxy. And I can actually do proxy application, and I just put that into a formatted list in here. And these are my published applications. So I've got this guy, which is srv1.example.com claims. If we just grab that and just go back, what we'll see, if we pop that in there, is that this is the same as that. So we're identifying here what the application is we're going to. Okay, so off we go, and we arrive up at the ADFS server. We do the authentication at the ADFS server. And then the interesting thing is that when we come back from the ADFS server, well, in fact, let's just go through that quickly. We've got if we go to web view, there's the home realm discovery. There's the post back, the web here, which is there's our home realm. The next thing that happens is this time it's forms authentication, and we then have a post back to that forms authentication, and whoops, I've just given away my password. All right, so as I warned you, be careful with this, you're going to grab people's passwords. And then, having done that, what's going to happen is we're going to get back, there's our cookies that are being set, and we're going to get back here, if I send that to the text wizard, copy it, pop it in here, what we've got is actually the action that we're asking, sorry, that was not what I wanted in here. Oh, sorry, no, I've picked up the wrong one. I wanted to pick up this one here, the return on that. And let's just take that, pop that up. And send that to the text wizard, and what it is, it's actually getting an authentication cookie. And if we pop that over here, to go down the bottom. So what it's actually doing, it's getting an authentication token back. This is JSON encoded, all right? And if you want to, you can decode it, and there's a reference in the slides for the decoding. If we go back to here, what we can do is pop over to the Federation Lab and take this and decode, and let me do that again. Pop over here, grab that lot, and decode it. And then we can see the contents of the JOT. It's a much simpler format than the XML SAML token, and what it's saying is the audience is the proxy server. But then what happens is we get the next stage in this transaction that's taking place, and here it's not accepting this token. So 400 is a bad request. So we're sending the token, but it's not accepting the token. And what could the reason for that be? Well, we sent a token across, it's not being accepted. If we look on the proxy, we can use the event log. And we can go down to the application and services, ADFS, and we look at this, and it's all informational, and it says, it's retrieved the information from the Federation services, all right? And it does that every 1 minute. So it's basically polling the ADFS server to get its configuration. What we need to do is go down under Microsoft Windows, and we're looking down here for the web application proxy. And we look in here, we're getting a warning, and it's saying that it is not accepting this token. And what it's doing is verifying the token with the signature's public key failed. So on the ADFS server, what we can do, sorry, not on the ADFS server, on the proxy, we can do a get and its web application proxy configuration, and we can see the public key that is actually being used to verify this token. So who signed this? It's the ADFS server that signed it. So the ADFS server, if we go over there, it actually signed it here with the token signing key. So if we look at this, how do we see the public key? Well, not easily is the answer, but what we can do is copy this lot to a file, and I'm just going to put it on my desktop, which is fine, and we'll just call it TS for token signing. Save that. Next on there, finish, and let's just go to the desktop, and let's grab that, let's copy that, and let's pop that over here. So I'm going to just go to the desktop, I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to open this, and I'm going to open it with Notepad. So I don't want to associate it permanently, so Notepad, and there is the public key of that certificate. So that is the public key associated with the signing certificate. So MIIC3, let's go and have a look on here, and we'll see it's MIIC4 for starters, but of course there's a whole lot more differences there as well. So it's the wrong certificate that actually is on the proxy. And it could happen if someone forced a rollover on the ADFS server of the certificates. And what you can do is you can actually, we could convert this into a single line, so we could go through the process, or I've already got one I did earlier, just to make life easy for me, which is this. I've actually got set application proxy configuration, ADFS token signing certificate public key, and then I'm going to grab that. I'm going to go back over here, run it, and what it will do is done now is it's actually set the key appropriately. So we've now got the correct public key on there. And I come back over here, and I go in to my, in the claims application, and I've got straight through now. How did they get straight through? Well, because the ADFS cookies were good, all right? But what it's now done is it's gone straight through. It is now, I've sent that proxy certificate across, sorry, not the proxy, the proxy token, and it has got me through the proxy and in. So there's one very important thing is if you do your troubleshooting, make sure, if you turn lots of auditing and lots of logging on, make sure you turn it off when you've finished. Otherwise, you will just fill up those logs. So in a very short space of time, I've tried to show you some of the ways that you can actually debug ADFS and the proxy service. I think Fiddler is a really, really important tool that you should be looking at, though. So thank you very much for coming to the session, and thanks for the help with the auditing. And please don't forget to fill in the evaluation. Thank you. And if you've got any questions, by all means, come down. So good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the session. And the session is on troubleshooting ADFS, including the web application proxy. Just to give you a little bit of background, I work out of the UK. I've specialized in identity and access for a number of years now. I did an awful lot of work, or I still do actually, with Active Directory. And I'm now beginning to work very aggressively with the Windows Azure Active Directory, seeing how that fits in as an adjunct to the on-premises Active Directory. And we've really looked doing a whole lot of what I call identity mashups. So Azure Active Directory, third-party enterprise providers, third-party social identity providers, the likes of Facebook, Google, Yahoo, etc., and bringing the whole lot together. And of course, who chucked into the equation something that makes it all a little bit more difficult? It's the CEO who brings in his iPad and says, I want to connect this to the corporate network. And in horror, you think, no, he doesn't. And the answer is, he's the CEO. So you end up now connecting the devices in as well and managing that. So the idea of this agenda here is to look at how we can troubleshoot ADFS. Now, the thing is, I can't show you absolutely everything that can go wrong with ADFS. What I want to try and do in the next hour and 15 minutes is get over a troubleshooting philosophy and show you some tools that can really help us do that troubleshooting. But I want to start off with just setting the scene as to what ADFS does. Okay, so how many of you got ADFS deployed today? Okay, so that's over half the audience. That's good. How many of you are totally new to ADFS? Okay, so it doesn't have a version number to go with it. So, because I actually went to the product group and said, hey, what do you actually call this thing? Because various people are calling it ADFS 3, and they said, oh, it's just ADFS. All right, so if someone's deployed ADFS, they've deployed Windows Server 2012 R2 ADFS. Otherwise, they have deployed something like ADFS 2, or back in the days of ADFS 1. IIS has gone, so there is no need for IIS anymore. Everything is done using http.sys. So that brings a little bit of challenge in terms of rebinding certificates and everything else. You need to use PowerShell for doing that. So we rebind certificates using PowerShell. The install directory is under Windows ADFS. So if you need to look for the config files for turning on tracing and things like that, then you go into that particular directory. There's support now for additional claim types, including device claims. So this is where we have a workplace joined device, all right? And we have certain claims about the device. So the operating system it's running, is it managed, is it registered, and so on. So we can actually make authentication and authorization decisions based on the device. So you could say, oh, if it's running iOS, I won't let it connect. But probably that's not a great idea, all right? But you can make that sort of level of decision. The other thing is we've got support now for global and per relying party authentication policies. And those will allow you to have an authentication policy. And in terms of authentication, we're talking about the actual authentication. Do you want to use multi-factor? What type of authentication would you like to use? Do you want to use Windows authentication? Do you want to use forms? Do you want to use certificate authentication? And we can make those decisions based on location of the device, i.e., is it inside of our corporate network, on our intranet, or is it outside on the internet? Microsoft call it the extranet if you're looking in the UI. Okay? And then the device type. Well, I've just talked about how we can find out about the device type, and then group membership. So you could say that anyone who's in some sort of administrative group of some kind would need to use multi-factor. So you could do that. Or you could say all devices, if they're coming in from the internet, will use multi-factor. Or you can do it on a per application basis or per relying party basis. So you could say, oh yeah, most of our apps, people can come in with just username and password, but for these apps, it's got to be multi-factor. And now we've got support for OAuth 2. OAuth 2 is becoming extremely significant. OAuth 2 is the sort of federated protocol that we will use to access most of today's RESTful APIs. So REST APIs probably secured with OAuth 2. It's an authorization protocol. So there's support added for that. When we do a workplace join, we will actually use OAuth 2. If you're publishing out work folders through ADFS, it will use OAuth 2. So OAuth 2 is important to us. And then you've got customization, so multi-factor authentication providers. The default setting is it'll allow you to use certificates as your second factor. But you can use the phone factor, you can add that, you can add other third-party mechanisms as well. Includes a device registration service. What is the device registration service? It's for joining a device, all right? So it manages the workplace join. And then in terms of the proxy is actually now, for ADFS, comes under the umbrella of the web application proxy. So we can't use a previous ADFS proxy. It has to be now from the web application proxy. So we've got the proxy for ADFS, we've got application publishing, and we've also got the ability to pre-authenticate. So I can take an application, I can just publish it out through the proxy, you connect, you go through the proxy to the application, and the application manages the authentication. Right? But I can require pre-authentication, so you come to the edge and it says, hey, before you get through me, I'm going to authenticate you. And before you get through the proxy, you've got to authenticate using claims. Right? So to do that, you need ADFS to implement that. And then finally, if you do have the proxy, then you can actually use it. So you could come to the edge with pre-authentication with a claims identity, and then we can take that claims identity and actually map it to a Windows identity to go to a Windows auth app. Because normally you come in claims, you go through to a claims app, but here we can actually go through to a Windows auth app, and that uses Kerberos constrained delegation. PowerShell support even better than ever, all right? And PowerShell absolute essential to actually for configuring this. Now, I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly because the reason is I want to leave lots of time for the demos, and really this I'm going to dig into more detail. This is just to set the scene so that you can actually see what's going on in the demos. So key concepts. We have a user and it requests a token. Requests a token for application X, all right? Well, if you were doing Kerberos, that's exactly what you do. You'd say, oh, can I have a Kerberos token to application X? But the difference here is, once you'd like a deep dive, immersion, chuck you in at the deep end. I'm not going to go into all the details of how ADFS works, but I'm going to show you how we troubleshoot it. So we'll be looking at the protocol flows and all the rest. And then we'll be looking at how the web application proxy fits in. Warning, things you see, don't just take them away and put them straight into production. I've been to a number of companies and they've got a problem, and you start digging into the problem and you say, why did you do that? And they say, oh, we read some Microsoft document that said do it. And I said, did you test it? Did you take ownership of it? No, we just did it. Don't. All right? Everything you need to do, you need to evaluate, you need to test. And I'm going to, or most of my presentations are based on field experience. My main role is as a consultant / architect, but I say / architect because I still like getting my hands dirty. I still like to do the troubleshooting and really dig into things. And as we know, no two fields are the same. So something I show you may not work in your environment, but I hope what I will show you is enough for you to take the ideas and concepts and apply them to your environment. And the other thing is demos. Please, please, please do not say, hey, look, we've just seen the ideal ADFS deployment. All right? My demos are showing points. All right? It is not an ideal production environment. Number one, I've got to get it all on my little machine. Which is obviously we wouldn't do in production. Okay, so first of all, Server 2012 R2 ADFS, what does it bring to the game? First off, a little bit about naming. If you look on the internet, all right, you will see ADFS version 3. All right? This is not ADFS version 3, this is just ADFS.